to share our message with the conservative and moderate Democrats to attract them to the Republican ticket in order to get the Republican to win on November 2nd. And we can do it with your help. And so I ask for your support next Tuesday, August the 24th, or in the early voting, whichever you do. But I ask you for your vote, because together we can truly make a positive difference and get back to our founding moral principles. Those principles and values that we all share and that we want to get back to as a country. With that, I'd be glad to open it up to any questions about particular policy. Anything's fair game. So if you have a question, yes, sir.
Saying it's an uphill battle is probably being light-hearted. What are your strategies? You kind of alluded to some of them. Do you have any particular concrete strategies that how to attack Boren and his ways in voting have us up to this point to be able to defeat? Because he has obviously will have a tremendous amount of money capability in ads. So where do you stab in the heart the devil to get to it?
You bring up, and you're exactly right. No doubt with his name, the financial resources behind him, it is a challenge. But it's a challenge worth fighting, and it's one that we can win. Particular strategies. One of the ways is this voting record. The simple fact that he supports continually Nancy Pelosi to be Speaker of the House, her agenda, the fact that he has supported the bailouts, the stimulus funds, and those are all recent things. You can go back in the 6 years that he has been there, and there are many votes that are simply on the wrong side of the issue. It's about bringing those out. But first and foremost is his support for Nancy Pelosi. Secondly is the ground game. A ground game is something Boren has not had to have really up to this point. It's something that we have done very extensively in the primary. It's about getting out and knocking those doors, about making the phone calls. For example, in the primary, I felt that as a candidate, and to be an example of how I would serve as a representative, it was to go out and personally knock on 7,300 Republican households. Volunteers did about another 1,200 there in the last few days. It's about having that ground game to go in and to some degree have a stealth campaign in order to attract those voters. There's not going to be any way you compete with media with him simply because he has too much money. So it's simply to run that stealth campaign and getting the message out of what he actually does and supports and attract those conservative and moderate Democrats to our side. We simply have to have them along with the Republicans. So, yes, sir.
You said that he votes with Pelosi, and excuse my voice, I got the voice. But how are you going to get this out to the people so that they know,
right,
the conservative Democrats, so that they know that he's voting lockstep with Pelosi and the other ultra-liberal
right,
people? How can you do that? Because most Democrats I know, they just go to the poll and stamp Democrat.
yeah.
They don't look at the candidates.
Right, right, and I think that's been very true. I think this year we're going to see some of that change simply because of the anti-incumbentism attitude that is out there, simply because of the administration we have. But in regard particularly, how do you get that message to those people? It's about identifying, as they mentioned earlier, about those conservative and moderate Democrats that we can switch to our side, targeting those with effective material that can be dispersed by volunteers through the campaign, so, just like we have done in our primary campaign, which is very cheap. We did something in the primary campaign, and for those that we knock on your door and you receive a door hanger bag, those door hanger bags were about, everything including the bag in them, was about 23 cents. Extremely, extremely effective. Very cost effective. You can't even, they won't even pay for postage on one piece of mail. And we were giving you 3, some people got 5 pieces of literature, and we're talking about 23 to 30 cents. So that's how you do it. You've got to have the ground game and the volunteer base, and that's something that we have not only had in the primary, but we continue to develop to propel us into the general.
Can you get him one-to-one so that the public,
In a one-to-one debate?
yeah, one-to-one debate.
Well,
so that the
at
public-
that time, we'll see. Always in the past, he's refused any debates with
Because
Republicans.
he will get, I've been to his meetings,
No strategy too.
and he will get up and tell you whatever you want to hear.
I
Of course, when he goes back to Washington, he votes, you know, the way he wants to vote.
Sure.
Oh, he's slick, he's like a
Yes,
snake.
sir.
I want to hear you talk a little bit about this stuff going on in the news right now, about the mosques. And there's two issues. First issue is private property and what's going on down at Ground Zero, and what your position is on that. The second issue is using federal funds through USAID to fund and rebuild and build brand new mosques overseas.
Your first issue, as American citizens, we are granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. And so if American citizens that are Muslims wish to build a mosque, they do have that right. Is it the right thing to do? No. It's simply like a murderer who stabbed someone and they're just twisting the knife. That's really what that is. We're twisting the knife in the wound by allowing that to be built. Do they have the right? Yes. Should it be done? No. The other thing is, should we be using USAID funds, international or funds, to build mosques? No. Not at all. In fact, many of the funds that are used for international aid are used improperly, I believe. And we should see oversight in how that money is spent. We need to get back to using it for what it was really intended to, and it wasn't building mosques.
Where did they build their mosque in Jerusalem?
Exactly
Right on top of Christians.
Exactly. Well, that's one thing about Muslims. I mean, you realize that the Muslims pray every day at the 9/11 crash site at the Pentagon. It's their stamp on look at what we've done,
Yeah.
and that's something that yes, they do have the ability to do so, but that does not make it right.
What would be, sorry, George, go ahead.
I know every Republican candidate that's running out there saying the first bill they're going to run is to turn back Obamacare, but outside of that, what's going to be your first agenda?
Same question I
Thank you very much.
Understand, because that was what we said would be the very first thing, is what you mentioned. But outside of that, the thing to do is simply to begin the process of reviewing, is to stop spending. To stop spending and begin to review what we're spending money on, how it's appropriated, begin to go through the programs, weed those out that we don't need, that are unconstitutional, but it's simply first, we've got to cut spending. So let's stop spending.
And that's going to be difficult because 50% of us are on entitlements, including me.
Good time. That's why we go to work every day.
That's right. That's right.
Tom, pay him our way. We've been there. That's right. We've been there.
We're all hooked. How are we going to do that?
Well,